Hi there, I am Margaret McNabb, and I am sitting here with my coach, Nanci Appleman-Vassil, and taking this opportunity to flip the script a little bit and ask her some questions about some of the guidance that she's been giving me over the years, and specifically on the topic of feedback. So something that Nanci always says is that feedback is a gift, which is great, and I totally agree at this point. But I am so curious, at what point did you start seeing feedback as a gift?
Yeah, so you know, Margaret, my background's in psychology, education, and counseling, and so I had all that schooling. And then one day I landed at this place called NTL, the National Training Labs Institute for Behavioral Sciences, and that's what they taught. They taught about the gift of feedback. That's where I learned the word. And when it became most impactful for me was I had a boss. Her name was Carol Brantley. She was amazing in so many ways. But the thing is that one day she gave me some feedback, and it came from her heart. She said to me, Nanci, you are not congruent. What you're saying, what your words are saying, and what your actions are not aligning. And that was so impactful. And she said, and here's how it's having an impact. Because when you say this and you do this, she said, you're giving a mixed message. And so through the years, and you know, with the coaching that I've done with you, is I talk about congruence. Right. I talk about intent and congruence because they're really important. I was probably in my early 30s when I got that piece of information. And
you definitely remember a point where before feedback did not feel like a gift. No. That was not something that you wanted to deal with. So.
No, you skirted around it. Right? It was like somebody wanted to give you feedback, you immediately went like this because you were like, okay, let me brace myself for the fact that I'm going to be bombarded with what I'm not doing well and I'm going to feel small. Right. And the gift of feedback is not about being small, it's about building people up so that they can be, the best that they can be moving forward. Yeah.
Well, so if feedback is a gift, what is the right packaging? What is the right way to tie it up and hand it to somebody?
Right. Yeah, so, and that is a skill and something that people are looking for, because what happens is that it starts with intent. Now, you know, we've done crucial conversations together. We've talked about crucial conversations. It's all about starting with heart. It's starting with intent. And so if my intent is that I care about you and you care about me, then we're going to have that conversation. So it needs to be timely. I once got feedback on something that I did in July, and the person didn't give me the feedback until February. Right. And I'm like, who could even remember what we did in January? Right? So it's like, hello. And so it needs to be timely. It needs to be specific. Specific means, what about that behavior is impacting your effectiveness? Right. Either in our exchange or in the exchange with the rest of the team, let's say in the organization. Yeah.
Well, I like when you talk about feedback as a positive thing, as spotting opportunity in people and all that too.
Yeah, because I see it as holistic, and that's what I learned from NTL. Right. It's not just about what are you not doing well. It's what do you bring to the table that we want you to do more of, that we value and appreciate about what you're bringing, and then what's getting in the way. So it's not constructive criticism, because constructive criticism makes me shake. Right. Because all you're doing is telling me what I'm not doing. You're chipping away at who I am as a person. Right. When you share with me the gift, and I open up the gift, then what I'm getting is, here's what's working and here's what's not working. Right. Because we want you to be successful.
Right. Yeah. And we know that feedback can go so wrong, so terribly wrong. So
more times than not.
Yeah. Right. So how does that happen?
Well, again, I feel like I'm a broken record here. It really is about intent. So the intent is that if I am going to come barreling in because I'm upset, then I'm going to say something that I can never take back. Right. I do what we call the dump and run, and I don't tell you what the impact of it is. It's just like, you didn't do that right, and there's usually one of these going on, right? Oof. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that can stem back from even our childhood sometimes.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Well, so what does it look like when feedback goes right for individuals, for organizations? What does that look like? What does it feel like?
Right. So the image that comes into my head when you ask me that question is, it's like a sunrise. It's like the start of a brand new day, right? Because I feel empowered.
Right.
Because we care about each other, and our intent is, and we're all going towards the common goal, and we're going to challenge each other. You know, the other part is all about conflict too, right? So that if I give you feedback, that might be a conflict moment, as opposed to it's a caring moment. Right. And so I see sun, I see blue skies, I see, you know, a rainbow that's, you know, down the line, and people get energized and want to contribute and want to stay engaged because they know that they're in a safe space. I mean, that's the other part, right? Yeah.
Well, so then for those of us who are developing that skill, and like you said, it takes practice. Learning how to both give and receive feedback takes practice. Where do you start? What's the first skill to develop?
Well, it's practice.
Yeah.
It's practicing how do I communicate to somebody. I mean, I know it sounds like, oh, wait a minute, you know, how could that be? But it's really, think about the first time you ever gave somebody feedback.
Right.
You know, and did it go well? Likelihood is not.
Just dreaded it.
Right, exactly. You dread it. You spend all this time about it. I remember the first time I had to give somebody some performance feedback. I was lucky enough to have a really good coach who walked me through it and said, okay, so what do you want to say? Now, you know, we have these two sides of our being. So there's the left side that says, I want to tell you how you're not doing that well. But then there's the right side, or, you know, the way that I need to approach it, which is for people to understand that what their behavior is doing. And then making sure that you paraphrase back to people, you know, that they paraphrase back to you, that they've heard the feedback. Because our brain is already operating as soon as we open our mouth. And our brain is already thinking about the reply or the response that we want to make, and we don't take in all the information. And that's really important, to not walk out of a feedback conversation and think that you've done a really good job of giving that feedback, and then you find out that the person didn't get it at all. They took the first thing, they heard what they're not doing well. Or that it didn't go 100%.
Well, I want to thank you for
it's always a pleasure.
Yes, always a pleasure.
It
Always a pleasure, and it is helpful. It's always helpful to understand where our own coaches and where the you know, advice and guidance that we're getting, where that comes from, and the intent with which you give it, and all that. So I really thank you for the impact that you've had on my life, and then hopefully for what we've been able to do for folks today. So thank you for tuning in, and be on the lookout for future Human Intelligence series.